Hello everyone, welcome to 3ddesignacademy.com. In this lesson, we will continue with part 8 of the Mercedes-Benz E-Class Coupe project. Okay, so for this particular session, I am going to continue on with trying to modify the highlight over here. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to add a little bit more puff in the middle, and I'm going to make the ends a little bit more horizontal so that we get a nice balance of trying to flatten this highlight a little bit and also transitioning to the either ends of the wheel flat. Okay, so first of all, let me just, I think this might be a good time to delete the construction history over here. And I'm just going to pull these a little bit more outboard so that we get a flatter highlight, as you can see over here. Well, that's a little bit too much, but you guys get the idea. So I'm just going to pull this out a little bit like this, and the ends I'm going to keep as is. I think it looks good over here. However, this end I'm going to see, well, actually I think that looks pretty good. Let's just check the highlight a little bit. That's it. However, we still need to make a little bit of modification in here, so let's go ahead and do that. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I am going to flatten it. So let's go ahead and untrim this surface over here, and just using skin. Actually, I wonder if there's a, yeah, right now the crown proportional value is at 0.01. I'm going to reduce that by half. So I'm just going to grab the skin, and I'm just going to click here and here, and proportional crown value will be at 0.005 instead of 0.01. I'm going to delete the original. Let's take a look. Okay, so that should already help with this point over here, but you still see a little bit of reverse peak. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to just duplicate the inside like this. And I'm going to, well, actually, let's go ahead and duplicate this side as well. Skin will be done again, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to move the pivot here. I'm just going to do a no proportional scale. I'm just going to push it in. I'll push this side a little bit inboard. Now in order to do this proportionally, let me just yeah, I'm just going to use a scale, no proportional scale, using the middle mouse button so that the transitions only happen in the y-axis, and that should already help with the peak. Okay, so it's kind of hard to find out if it's actually there's a peak or not. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a help with the surface continuity tool. So I'm going to turn on show max label show come on like this, and I'm just going to hit this point, and this way you can see where the transition is going. So you'll see that the comb is actually reversing in direction base right here, starting right here. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that all the comb is either outside or it disappears completely. So I'm going to grab the curve again, no proportional scale. I'm just going to push it a little bit inboard, and you should be able to see this transition. So you see as I push this on a little bit more inboard, the comb gets updated, and I think that's our target. Okay, so now these are probably due to curvature. So let me just change this to tangent and check it again. Okay, so you'll see that right now this is tangent right. Oh, actually, I still might be going the other direction. So I still see a tiny little comb there peeking out. So let's do a non-proportional scale again. And okay, there we go. I'm just going to do it until that thing disappears. So that means it's probably tangent right here. Okay, so everything, okay, so the peak disappears nicely there. The shape of the wheel flat is still pretty intact, so I'm pretty happy with that. And you gotta make sure that this doesn't get pushed too much inboard, because well, even right now, you'll see that this is a little bit thicker here compared to here. But this should be okay, because if you see the highlight over here, I think it's supposed to be just one surface. So I think that with pushing this edge inboard, I think that should resolve on its own. So now let's go ahead and make the modification on both ends. So actually, before I do that, I think I want to... Okay, let's take a look at this a little bit. Okay, so I'm still not quite 100% satisfied with the highlight on this one. So I'm going to see if I can make a little bit more modification there. So let's go ahead, and I might pull the ends out a little bit. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, well, first of all, I'm going to realign this piece over here. So let's go ahead and untrim this piece, and I'm going to align it. I'm going to align the position here like this, and I'm going to turn blending on, extra zeros are 1. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull it out just a little bit. Oops. I'm going to grab both CVs on the end, and let's see, I'm going to just make sure that I got the right one. Okay, so I think I do. I'm going to grab this CV over here, and I'm going to grab this one over here, and I'm just going to pull either ends out like this. Now I don't know why it's the surface is going like crazy over here, so let's just check. Oh, okay, so I think it's just actually reversing in direction. So for this one, what I can do is I can just undo, and I'll have to redo it. I think the problem is it's not matching on either side. Okay, well, that's fine. And let's just go ahead and make this change. So I'm just going to make sure the blending is on. And I'm going to grab this one and this one. I'm just going to keep pulling it out. Like this. And that should help with the highlight over here. So as you can see, it's got a more gentle slope. It's sloping down this way and sloping down this way. So that should help with the overall highlight, and that's I think that's going to give us a little bit better result overall. So let me just push it out, and let's just do a test over here. So first of all, let me just trim this one, and I'm just going to make sure that this curve is lined up still. Yep, that's good. And let's go ahead and do a bi-rail again. So it's just going to be 1, 2, and 3. Curvature there. Okay, so I think with all the modifications that we made, I think this is looking a lot better than before. So I'm pretty happy with that. And let's just check the highlight to make sure that it's flowing nicely. I think it's much better than before. We've still got a tiny little peak over here, and overall pretty nice. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the same thing over here. For this one, what I can do is I can just use align. So I'm going to say G2, blending will be turned off like this. Now, I do see a little bit of reverse over here. So in this case, I think what I need to do is I need to make this surface a little bit flatter on this side. I think one of the reasons for this is because there's a little bit too much crown here. Actually, you know what? Let's save that for a little bit later, because I am going to make a little bit of modification on this wheel flat also. So I'm going to wait for that a little bit. But overall, I like the shape, how it's falling gently onto the either side. So I think it's looking much better. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a modification to the wheel flats, because if you notice, it's supposed to be just one surface towards the end. I think it's a little bit more difficult to see on this one, but let's grab this one. So if you see this, you'll see that the peak starts to disappear as it goes towards the bottom. So that's what I'm going to try and achieve. So let's see what we can do. Oh, that said, however, I am going to give this a little bit more definition. So I think that there's a little bit more definition between the wheel flat and the body side and the sort of the fender pulling out. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to pull this the whole thing in. like this, so that we can get a little bit more dramatic section across here. Now this will constantly need update depending on the surface. So let's just do this first. So I'm going to untrim this one like this, and I'm going to, well, actually, you know what? Let's delete the construction history. And I'm going to align this piece over here like this, and it's going to be positioned. And blending will be on like that. And let's go ahead and trim this one also. Okay, so curvature is still intact, and because this is aligned, that should be intact also. Okay, so doing it this way, it's going to give a little bit more dramatic section across here, and that should help with the overall shape matching. And we got a little bit more section here, so I think that's pretty good. Okay, so now let's go ahead and work on the wheel flats. So what I'm going to do is, well, first of all, let's just get rid of that. And because it's supposed to be very similar in section from here to here, there shouldn't be a peak like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the wheel flat and detach it. So I'm just, well, I don't think I'm going to use detach. I am going to use curve and surface. So I'm going to say insert curve and surface over here, and I'm just going to snap over here like that. And let's go ahead, and I think I'm just going to use a degree 3 curve in order to make this. So let's do a fit curve, or actually I'm going to do a surface divide. So I'm going to say divide, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a fit curve over here. Just going to pull it up. Just going to go to a side view like this, and I'm going to pull it up to this area over here. Well, as long as it's close, I can use the extend tool in order to make sure that it matches exactly. And I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm just going to pull it up like this. Okay, and I'm just going to delete the construction history on the fit curve. And now let's go ahead and trim. Oh, well, no, trim is not required, but I am going to get rid of this surface over here. Okay, so let's actually get rid of this curve over here, so we don't need that anymore. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a, well, first of all, before doing anything, let's make sure that this is aligned properly. So I'm just going to align at curvature, and I'm just going to make sure that there's not too much deviation. So let's see if turn proxy display on. Well, there's a little bit of deviation over here, but I don't think it's that much. So I think we can just keep it as is. And I'm going to align this piece over here as well. Again, a little bit of deviation, but I don't think it's anything to worry about. So pretty happy with that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this surface over here, and I'm just going to strike a curve from here to here. So I just did an insert, not an insert, intersect, and I'm just going to snap a curve. Let's see, let's snap a curve here. I don't know why there's this deviation, so let's fix that too. Okay, so what I'm going to, oh, actually, I wonder if blending is on. Oh, that's why. Okay, I'm going to turn blending off, and I'm just going to use the extend tool, snap it over here, and that should, actually, let's compare. Well, okay. So I'm just going to snap the whole thing over here like this. This needs to be updated, and let's go ahead and strike a curve from here to here, and let's do an align over here. Okay, so now we got a guideline for the below, for the edge below, and I'm going to make sure that I use extend to snap it over here, and I'm just going to snap it right there. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a square. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a lot of span, so let's rebuild curvature on this side, and I'm going to just change the number of degrees. Now for this section, 3 degrees should be more than plenty. Although I don't know. Oh, okay, so right now the rebuild is on, so I think that's why there's a little bit of deviation. Actually, there should not be a deviation between this. Oh, okay, so the curve is a little bit longer, so that's why. Okay, so that one I can, yeah, that should not be a matter. And now let's go ahead and do a square. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4. And let's take a look at this one. So 3 actually needs to be curvature. And I'm just going to turn explicit control on so that we don't have extra number of CVs other than the basic ones that we need. Okay, so that should give us a nice transition from a peak to flush condition right here. And I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so we got a little bit of peak over here. And I think overall that looks pretty good. There's going to be a, well, I think with, yeah, I think that looks pretty close to what we need. Okay, so I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so let's continue that on to the front side. I think this looks much better than before. We got a very nice gentle slope. Now I do need to put a fillet here, but that'll be later. But at least the theoretical looks good, so that should help us with the overall shape. Okay, so let's do the same thing over here. So what I'm going to do is, let's, well, first of all, I'm going to delete both curves right here, and let's go ahead and do an insert. I'm just going to snap it onto this surface over here, like this. And let's go ahead and divide. And I'm just going to do a fit curve on the bottom one. Bring it up. I'm just going to do the same thing over here. And bring this one up as well. Okay, so it looks like it's a little bit short. Well, it won't snap, but that's okay. I can just use the extend tool to snap it right here. Okay, so that looks good. And let's go ahead and delete this one because that's no longer necessary. And I'm just going to align this piece over here. There should be a little bit of deviation, but it should be okay. Actually, it looks like this one almost doesn't have deviation from the initial set. Okay, there we go. And now let's go ahead. And I'm going to strike a curve from here to here. Like this, and I'm just going to use align, and let's go ahead and grab this surface, or not surface, grab this edge, this curve over here. I'm going to just snap it over here, and I'm going to just grab it and snap it like this so that curvature is retained while the edge is aligned to this one. Okay, so that looks good, and let's go ahead and do a bi rail. So it's going to be 1 and 2. Rebuild will be turned off. Gen 1 is going to be curvature, so that looks good. And now I'm going to rebuild this one. So let's go ahead and do a bi rail. It's going to be 1 and 2. It's going to, I'm going to, okay, so gen here, rail 1 here, rail 2 over here. And rail 2 is going to be curvature. And let's just take a look. And this surface, that was just for the indication of where things were. I'm going to delete that. That's no longer needed. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, so the highlight looks pretty good. However, I don't like how this is reversing in direction over here. Now, this could be it's most likely an indication that there's a little bit too much volume. It's probably rocking a little bit this way towards this side. So what I need to do is I probably need to reduce the amount of crown here. So let's go ahead and delete the construction history. and I probably need to redo this one. So let's go ahead. Actually, let's do this. I don't think I need this curve anymore because, well, maybe I do. But I think getting this highlight to be a little bit more complementary is more critical. So I'm going to do the rest a little bit later. So I'm going to align this piece over here. It's going to be edge on both sides. Well, actually, no, let's leave that skew. And I'm going to flatten this one a little bit. Just the CV. Let's increase the mouse sensitivity, and just going to be in the Y direction. I'm just going to rock this in a little bit more inboard until this highlight gets fixed. So let's push it in. And as you can see, it's starting to be a little bit better. I think that looks good. There we go. Highlight fixed. Okay, so I think there's a little bit of an issue here. But that could be due to this surface over here. So let's fix this again. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to... Let's take a look. I'm going to intersect this one with the bottom edge here. And I'm just going to make sure that this is actually curvature over here. And I do have to realign this CV over here. So I'm just going to grab, well, okay, so let me just turn the CV structure off on that one. I'm going to grab this edge and I'm going to snap here like this. And looks like this one needs to be updated again. So let's grab a line, and I'm just going to, it's going to just be positioned. I'm going to grab this end and I'm just going to align it to the curve. And let's just take a look. Okay, so that looks pretty good. However, I do notice a little bit of flick on the bottom. Basically, there should be a nice gentle slope all the way to the bottom, but I think this might need a little bit of update. So I think and the highlight on the wheel flat probably needs a little bit of modification too. So what I can do is I can just pull this. Let's just turn the CV. Well, I can do this. I can just pull this one both inboard like this. I think what's happening is because there's a little bit too much, I guess a dramatic change from the section here to here. So I can just try to make this a little bit flat, and I can update this section over here like this, and hopefully that'll provide us a little bit better section. I think there's a little bit of reverse peak going on. So I think it might be beneficial to make this even more flat. So what I'm going to do, yeah, I think that might be better. Okay, so let's go ahead and pull this in. I'm going to grab both CVs over here. I'm going to just pull this in until it's a little bit flatter. And I'm going to align this one back to this curve like this, and that should make things a little bit more gentle. Now that said, however, I still think that this highlight needs a little bit of work. So I think what's happening is okay, so it's I think there needs to be an update on this section. So I think what's happening is that we got a reverse of this problem. So we pushed this inboard a little bit, but that made it a little bit flat on the bottom. So I think I might need to make a little bit more modification over here. So I'm going to just grab the edge like this, just the CV over here, and I'm just going to try and push it in a little bit inboard here. I think let's just test it out. Okay, so that's giving us a little bit better result. So actually, if that's the case, I think here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to break this a little bit. So I know that we were just aligned exactly, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this out like this to give it a little, just a slight break. And I think that's starting to already help a little bit. So let's pull it out so that I'm giving peak back to this one just a little bit. Let's grab this curve again. And I think that's helping with the highlight over here. Yes, that does. Okay, so overall the highlight is looking pretty good. Now it did give a little bit of peak back to it, but with I think this one needs a little bit of refinement. And what I can do is I can just pull this out just a little bit. So let's go ahead and pull this out, pull this back out so that this is more horizontal. Now, I don't think I'm going to make it exactly match. Previously, I just I made a curve from here to here to make sure that they were like just all one line. I think that might not be realistic. So I'm going to try and see if retaining the peak, but just making a little bit more gentle is going to work out a little bit better for us. So I'm just going to pull it out until it looks similar. And I think this might be a little bit better. So highlight looks good. It looks pretty similar over here. Well, let's see. Let's pull this out until it's very similar in shape. Yeah, I think that's looking pretty good. So let's take a look at what I did over here. I believe okay, so that's what I did. Okay, so let's see if I can, because right now the wheel flat, I'm gonna try this again. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make right now I believe, wait, is this a square? Yes, it's just a bi-rail. So I'm going to see if I can just make it into a square, because I believe the one at the end is a square. So let's just do 1, 2, 3, and 4. Oh, okay. Actually, this is floating. So let's change this. Okay. So let's go ahead and snap this back into place over here. And I'm just going to use a square. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, and 4 over here. Position failed. So let's just increase to degree 3. 1 is going to be curvature. This should give me just one single line. Now the highlight does dive down. So let's see. I'm going to just check the highlight on this one. Okay, so the highlight, I think it's starting to bounce back a little bit, but overall it's a lot better than before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just pull this out just a little bit so that we can increase the section on this one. Actually, you know what? Let's see. Do I need to go in? I'm just going to see if I need to go inboard or outboard to make this happen. I think it's outboard that I need to go. So let's grab this one. I'm going to pull it out just a little bit like this, and I'm going to pull this one out, snap it over here, and that should help with the highlight over here. Yes, the return on this is being reduced, so I think that looks pretty good, and we got a nice gentle curve over here, so I think that's looking good too. That said, however, I think it's looking a little bit more horizontal here. Let's just check other images. Well, actually, it's diving down. But a little bit more less dramatic, looks like. And I think it might be beneficial to just have a peak, because I do see a slight break right here. So I think this side is diving down, and I would probably just keep this a little bit more flat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep this as is. However, I am not going to, I think I'm just going to make this a little bit flat. So I think I'm just going to go back to bi rail. So it's going to be 1, 2, and 3 over here. And let's just pick this one like this and just return it back like this, so that it's somewhat flatter over here. I think that's going to, yeah, I think that's going to make this a little bit more flat. I think that's going to help with the overall shape. Now, yes, there's a little peak, but I think this should be okay. And I might pull this. Now, this will depend on overall shape and how it interacts with the fender over here. But I might even make this a little bit longer so that the transition over here is a little bit more gentle. So I'll have to see on that. But overall, I think I made a decent progress on the whole car. So not unhappy with the transition. Yes, but I definitely do think that it's much better than before. However, I probably need to work on this highlight a little bit. I mean, it's not looking bad right now. It's just that I might just pull this edge a little bit out so that it's a little bit more flat. Yeah, I might do that. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this one like this, and I'm just going to pull it out just a little bit so that this transition is a little bit flatter. So let's see if I can pull it out like this. Highlight's still looking pretty good. Let's pull it out just a little bit more so that this transition is a bit flatter. Actually, that might be a little bit too much. I should grab this one also. And just pull it out like this. Until it becomes a little bit flatter like that. And I'm going to have to check back on the highlight. Okay, so it's a little bit flatter over here. However, you'll notice that the highlight is a little bit skewed over here. So it's diving back up. So let's go ahead and make this a little bit flat. That should help with the transition. Okay, so well, this is a little bit of a problem. So what's happening is that as I make this flat, it's improving over here on the top, but it's actually not improving on the over here at the bottom. So I'm going to see if I can adjust that. The problem is, in order to improve the bottom, I would have to push this inboard, which is actually counterintuitive. So I might have to do a little modification here. So, well, let's just, I think I'm going to pull this out a little bit, and I'm going to pull this in a little bit. See if that helps. And what could help is adding a little bit more drama to here. But that, I am going to leave that as a last resort. I'm just going to try to move the CV a little bit here. No, that doesn't work. Okay, so let's just go back. And let's just check. This curve I'm going to get rid of, and I'm just going to check the section over here. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a draft here to make sure that it's okay. So that's what's happening. If you see this right here, you'll see that it's becoming a little bit more flat compared to the top. I think that's causing a little bit more problem. So what well, this is making things a little bit more complicated. Okay, so what needs to happen is it basically needs to have a same amount of, well, not same, but similar amount of offset between the wheel flat and the base surface, which is where the fender is based on. So I need to push this in, but if I push this in, there is going to be a problem with this section over here, or the highlight, the diving down. So this makes things a little bit more complicated. Okay, you know what? I think it's not a bad time to stop, and I'll have to do a little bit more exploration before continuing with the next lesson. Okay, so that is it for part 8. We will pick this up in the next tutorial, and thank you guys for watching.